intention for here during this Talk UX. And imagine for a moment if some of the conversations that you heard today or that you appreciated a comment from somebody else saying were actually just the first conversations of a very long friendship that might last another year or 15 years or longer into the future. Let's see. I'm going to check the chat here. Ah, sounds like Yvonne. Somebody appreciated what Yvonne and Aditi. Yes. I definitely appreciated something Amaris was saying in the earlier session, as well as in the panel. Mike has said some things that I really appreciated. Beautiful. And I encourage you to share that as we go. So, the next thing to know when it comes to navigating these, transitions in the development of new connections, whether it's here or somewhere else in your life, is that starting a new friendship is a lot like shipping a new feature. And it has all of the excitement and anticipation, where there's like that spark of newness and that fresh energy. It's like this rush that can be kind of addicting, honestly, for people who like building and shipping things. Am I the only one who loves starting something or kicking something off or launching something? Is really, really exciting. And friendships can feel the same way when they're brand new, but just like every feature has to be maintained, so do friendships. And maintenance is actually what turns those friendships and features into a long term, high functioning uh, benefit in our lives, right? And it helps them improve over time. So let's talk about how we can translate this to the realm of friendship. So, friendships obviously are not products. They don't have briefs. They don't have product development plans. They don't have a roadmap with like 5 year projections on them. It's a journey, and it's a journey with an unknown destination because we don't really know where those friendships are going to lead. We don't know exactly what the path is going to hold, and we don't know how that journey is going to end. Hopefully, it does not end with ghosting. I don't like the ghosting end of a friendship, but we can't predict or force the end of a friendship or the development of a friendship or any relationship, quite honestly. But there are certain steps that we can take that can increase our likelihood of success. And over the 5 years I spent researching and writing the book We Should Get Together, I learned a lot of things, either in my own qualitative research and also in reviewing like just mountains of academic research and other people's very robust quantitative studies. And I've really tried to distill this into some really simple takeaways that we can all put into practice in our own lives. So, one of the very first things that we can do to keep those friendships strong is to not be a pastry. So resist the urge to turn into a croissant because while croissants are popular and pleasant, as we all know, they are also flaky. And research shows, and in your own life has probably also verified, that flakiness is one of the biggest reasons why friendships like fizzle out and fade away and just kind of disappear. So it's really important that if we want to maintain a friendship, especially one that's new or we're not really sure like how the other person feels, we have to be a little bit like maybe 25% more expressive than we normally feel to show that commitment. And so let your hopes be known, let your thoughts be known, and then in the way that you show up, let the behavior for how you give your attention and appreciation to the other person demonstrate your highest ideals for friendship. And of course, if you have boundaries to take care of, please, by all means, like respect that. I don't ever advocate for people to burn themselves out by overcommitting in the realm of like social well-being or friendship. But, it's important to be honest, about how you're feeling. So tell them about your hopes for connection, tell them about how much you appreciate them, and be honest as well about what your boundaries are too. In the book, We Should Get Together, I talk about four things that really are key to cultivating a strong friendship. And I call them the seeds of connection. And they are frequency, compatibility, commitment, and proximity. A friendship is really likely to be strong if all four of those are really present and at a really high level, but you don't have to have all four at 100%. So, an example of that is right now in the remote world that we're all living in through the pandemic, we don't need proximity quite as much, especially if you have a really high amount of commitment and compatibility and some degree of frequency that can keep the like thread of the friendship going. And the other thing about proximity, and I did a post on Instagram about this a while ago, is that proximity actually comes in more than one form. We typically think of it immediately in the tangible world of distance in that can be measured in like kilometers or miles or feet or 6 feet or whatever it is. But there's also the proximity that comes in our emotional closeness too, right? So you can have a friend who's geographically close, but you don't actually feel emotionally close to them. And on the other hand, you may have a friend who lives a plane ticket away, but wow, they are so deeply rooted in your heart and really intimately connected to your life. Can anybody else relate to that? I definitely have that experience with some of my closest friends. We've moved a lot in life. Tell me in the chat if you have that too. Some of my closest friends are actually some of the farthest away. And that's one of the reasons why, obviously, the pandemic has made things harder with distance, but it's like if that was the case, then like everybody's next door neighbor would be their best friend, and that's not true. And nobody could have a best friend who lived far away, and that's obviously not true. So we can do it. And to do so, we are designers, and I believe that one of the things we can do is to design better connections. So last year in 2020, in the height of the worst cases here in the United States, I started to get concerned about loneliness, particularly in the design industry. Obviously, I care about loneliness and connection, or I wouldn't have written a book about it. But I also thought about like, what is the sub niche for our own industry? Like, how is this manifesting for other designers? Because in my own life experience and work experience, I've been at small, medium, and large companies where I felt connected, and I've been at small, medium, and large companies where I felt disconnected. So I wanted to understand this more for other designers, and that includes not just like UX designers or product designers, but including like content writers, content designers, design managers, project managers, like the whole spectrum, right? And I did interviews with folks who were newbies that were just like a year or two into their industry, and then also people who were like seasoned veterans with like decades of years of experience. And they were really, really kind enough to open up to me about their own experiences of connection and disconnection in the design world. And an interesting takeaway, there was a lot of interesting things, and I have a whole nother talk about that, but an interesting takeaway was that for many of the folks who did feel like they had designer friends who they could feel really safe and trusted with, those folks were not always necessarily at their company or like even again with that proximity, even like very close to where they were. Many of them were designers who worked someplace else. And because they were each removed from the day to day, like work drama and life, they felt freer in their relationship to like either vent about the challenges or to ask for support or to give support. And that friendship could become this like neutral, safe zone that wasn't swayed by the pressure of whatever each person's company was. And I think that friendships like these are also really special because when you make a friend who understands your work, like other UX designers here, they understand the context of what you're going through day to day, but you also get to add on all of the other context about who you are as a human being and an individual. So you can talk about the rest of your life. Like, what is important to you that is not your work? And if you weren't doing this work, what else would you be doing, with your life? And what are the other things you do for hobbies? And what are your pets like? And what do you do for fun? And what do you do when you're bored? Like, there's so many other things we can learn about each other beyond just our work identities. And so in the qualitative interviews that I did, I also learned that unfortunately, many designers don't feel like they have as many friends in the industry as they wish that they did. And there's a number of reasons that lead to that feeling of either not having the belonging that they want or not having the depth of friendships that they want. So they might like know people that they're acquaintances with or like we're like work friends, but like they don't really know me. Um, and there were a lot of different reasons that were like interrupting that. So it was things like wishing for mentorship and not having it, or wishing for mentees and not having it. There were folks who talked about facing discrimination in the workplace or even ethical challenges with things that their companies were doing, and that would lead to feelings of disconnection. Um, Also, the design culture has sometimes a competitive atmosphere, a perfectionistic competitive atmosphere, which can make people feel very nervous to open up and to share. Oh my gosh, like I did this thing wrong, or I'm not sure what I'm doing right now, or whatever it might be. That fear of judgment is there in the design industry, as we heard in the last panel as well. Sometimes there's a lack of representation, particularly for people of color, for women, for non binary folks. And also, there's for real ageism in the design industry. And it creates this like self fulfilling prophecy where people who have a lot of experience but feel like they're getting pushed out and are not valuable. But then there's people who are younger in the industry who are like, oh my gosh, I really want a mentor. And it's like we have to reconcile these things so that each person can contribute what they have to give and can also receive what they need. So, if these are the kinds of conversations that you feel yourself nodding your head with right now, I see a couple comments in the chat about relating to this. I encourage you to take note of that, just observe it, and then realize that there is a very good chance that there are other designers in your world or in this virtual room right here who want to have that conversation too, who want to get into the bubble of safety and like really have a heart to heart to express these things that we're carrying around all day and frequently not talking about with anyone else. We all need friends in our industry to share our struggles with and to learn from and to grow with. And we also need friends in the industry who can understand and celebrate our successes with us too. You know, when somebody gets an awesome new job or a promotion and they're so excited about it, it's one thing to post it on Twitter and be like, "Yay, I did the thing." And people like, "Yay, they like it and they write a nice comment." But it's a completely different thing to know that you could pick up the phone and call like 5 people or 10 people and they would 100% be celebrating for you too. So you don't have to celebrate alone. One of the things that I love that Anushka and Micah are talking and Krista are saying, some really great stuff in the chat right now. One thing I really love to do at my workshops and talks like this one is to create a chance for people who do want to plant a seed for future connection or a future conversation to do so. To say, like, hey, this is me. I'm raising my hand. I would really love to make a new friend. So I'd love to make that invitation right now in the chat if this is something that you want to do, to go ahead and like say in the chat, like, do you want to make a new friend here at Talk UX? Yes, I see Anushka with the yes, smiley face. Yes, Kay. Yes, Jennifer. Always open for virtual tea breaks. I see Micah, Alicia, Gabriella, Xenia shirt. Love it, love it. This is beautiful because it really creates a doorway when we tell the world, like, this is the thing I'm looking for. Do you want this too? We need to make it known and not just carry it around like this little secret that we're like wishing is going to come true and like nobody knows that you want this thing. So, yes, 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 love to see it in the chat right now. For those of you who are open to being reached out to, you can even share in the chat like, what is the thing that you check most frequently and you enjoy replying to your messages on, whether it's your email or your Twitter handle or your Instagram handle. Feel free to include that if you want people to know, like, you can reach out to me. Here's where you can find me, and see what grows from there. And I'm going to continue our little baking metaphor here for friendship. So as we think about, okay, so we want to make a new friend, we're going to take that first step, we're going to reach out. What's going to happen? Interestingly, I learned something fascinating in this research about friendship, and I want to share it with you. And it had to do with the amount of time it takes to go from feeling like a stranger with someone to feeling like this is a best friend. It's interesting, like, a lot of people say, like, "Oh, it just feels like magic." Sometimes you feel like that after, like, a day, sometimes you feel like that after a long time. But someone has actually studied this and attempted to quantify in numbers, like, how long does it take to make a best friend? And according to research, that I found that was so fascinating, the average amount of time it takes to go from stranger to, like, close friend or best friend is 90 to 200 hours. And this was granted in a college university setting where people are like rooming together and taking classes and eating most of their meals together. I do believe that it is possible, though maybe not always uh, the default, I do think it's possible to feel closer much quicker than that. And I mainly have that opinion because as a facilitator who has run like a week long retreat, like an overnight week long retreat, I've seen people develop a very, very strong bond very quickly in the span of like 8 days. So the amount of closeness we develop is often subject to the level of trust and vulnerability that we share and that we experience in that relationship. And we have to also keep in mind, like, these things are not going to happen overnight. So we can pick up our phone and push a button to summon a taxi or to get a delivery of our favorite food, but there is no button that we can push to get like true friendship on demand. It's not an instant experience. So we have to remember that forming those close friendships don't happen overnight. And we have to really commit ourselves with time and dedication and the commitment to showing up again and again and again in that mutual investment. And hopefully, each time you make that investment of time and attention and care, you feel like the returns on your investment are really going to be remarkable. And with that, if you are going to make a really concerted effort to build a friendship, it's important that that time, if you're thinking about that 90 hours or whatever, that it doesn't drag on for too long. You can't just spend like 90 hours together over the next decade. It really needs to happen in a compressed time frame. The research suggests this should happen in the first 2 to 3 months. But it can't be like talk to you in the summer and then I talk to you again in the winter. It actually needs to happen like much more close together. And so, one of the best ways to develop that habit of frequent connection is to keep up your momentum by automating it. And I do this in my own life, not with all of my friendships, but with some of them. We just outsource that automation for keeping in touch because we know that we are busy people and we have busy lives and that it's a priority that we stay in communication. And so, with a couple friends of mine, we actually have a recurring calendar date to talk, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, or once a month. And we make sure that when we get that notification, it's like, yeah, are we still on? We're gonna get together. We're gonna talk. Great. And the one thing I really like about this strategy is that it removes the burden of it being like, whose turn is it to reach out? Because that's something that is like kind of a sore spot for some people where like they feel like they're always reaching out to the friend and the friend never like reaches out to set up the next hangout. It's like if you just automate it, like put it in both your calendars, then it's nobody's turn. It's like your turn to show up when the calendar says so, and that's it. So think about ways to relieve some of the friction in that process and to make it easier so that you can show up with intention and not just leave these things to chance. Because unfortunately, chance is how things frequently fade away. Chance is how people like get busy and forget. And then I don't know if you've ever had the experience of like you forgot to reach out, a lot of time has passed, you realize the other person maybe thinks that you have ghosted them or vice versa. And so much time has passed that now it feels very awkward to reach out again because it has been so long. And what is going on? Has this ever happened? Let me know in the chat. You can confess. It has happened to me. It has happened to the best of us, and it's okay. But if we realize that, learn from it, and then just make a new intention and a commitment to action, it's okay. Yep, I see people saying it's happened to them too. It's a thing. We just gotta take a little step there. So I also want to give a shout out, particularly now in the pandemic, for that joy I feel around long distance friendship, low speed communication. I know it might seem a little bit crazy that I'm talking to a room of people who work in technology that I am saying that we should take things quite a bit slower because in our world, like, and in our work, things happen as close to immediately as possible. We do things very quickly, and life is frequently driven by this sense of like urgency and immediacy. And it's really stressful sometimes, and it can also be very overwhelming. And so when we have this life of constant urgency and the pressure of like now, 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 it can lead to burnout and it can take things that used to be fun and now feel like exhausting and rushing all the time. It can take some of the joy out of it. And so the thing that I think about a lot lately is what if we treated our friendship and our social interaction not as a to-do list item in the calendar that's like, oh, I have to check this box, but it's actually a type of self-care. And what if we brought that self-care energy to it as well? So when we think about other self-care goals that you might have. Like one of mine is that I'm constantly trying to practice, but not always doing perfectly, is acknowledging that like taking time away from devices is a good idea. Getting a little bit of a digital detox is a good idea. Whether it's like going in nature, unplug for the weekend or something is really, really special. And so, what are your self care goals, and how can you weave one of your other goals with your friendship and see if you can share those two things at the same time? During the pandemic, one of the things that millions of us have been forced to do is to slow down. And it turns out that slowing down is actually very relaxing, and slowing down can make our life feel more spacious. Has anybody else felt that over the last year? I have kind of loved it. And as an introvert, really, really been grateful for that. So, taking more of our friendships offline is one way to slow down. And it gives us the benefit of creating this personal connection with another person that, if I'm writing you a letter and you're writing me a letter, our communication is not going to be turned into some commodity for advertising sales, and it's not going to exist inside somebody else's server farm. Our friendship exists right here between you and me. And so ask yourself, like, where do you want your friendships to exist? Because they really can exist across different kinds of platforms and different kinds of dimensions. So our friendships can live inside our devices. They can live inside social media apps. They can live inside our phone calls, our video messages, our text messages, and emails. We can choose to let our friendships live on paper in the tangible world that we send into each other's homes and hold in our hands. We can choose to let our friendships live in the physical world of face to face contact where we have smiles and eye contact, and we can create memories that have the same sensory detail. That's like the most vivid type of dimension for our friendships to live in. Honestly, I like all of the above, depending on the friendship that it is. But to think about, you have a choice for all of these dimensions for where you want your friendships to unfold in. And if you reach out to somebody here who said in the chat, I saw so many yeses, people who want to make a new friend, consider adding this question to maybe the next conversation that you have with someone you reach out to and say, what would be the most inviting and pleasant places for this friendship to unfold for you? Think about that and let the people that you talk to know, what your hopes are and what would feel really good and special to you, and then listen to them to hear what would feel really good and special to them. So, as we get ready to close up today, I still have a little bit more I want to share. And if you have questions that you want me to answer, feel free to put them in the chat. I have a couple minutes I can touch on those if there's any. But one question people frequently ask me, because I'm very upfront on my social and in my newsletter about the fact that I'm an introvert, and people are sometimes surprised. They're like, "You're an introvert and you wrote this book about friendship." And I'm like, that's right. Because it doesn't mean I don't care about people or I don't want to be around people. It's that I'm kind of choosy in how much energy I have to give away for connection. And for that reason, I want my connections to be really, really high quality. And so sometimes people ask, what advice do you have for introverts when it comes to building friendship? Because are there any other introverts here? Is that a question? Is that relevant? Let me know in the chat. The first thing I always say when this comes up is to acknowledge that you don't have to pretend to be an extrovert in order to have friends. We live in a world with over 7 billion people in it. There are plenty of introverts out there, and there's a very good chance that however you want to spend time with people, there's going to be somebody else who wants to spend time together in that way too, even if you are both extreme introverts. So I'm going to give a few examples here. Throughout the pandemic, one of the experiments that I did was I ran a group called Connection Club, where we broke the laws of physics by proving that you can get a recurring group of introverts together. And what we would do is we would get together and write letters to our friends for the first half an hour. And then we'd have an optional 20 minutes of conversation on a focused topic for the rest of the time. You could stay or leave at any time. And it was a beautiful experience of feeling connected, but in this like extremely chill, low key way. If anyone's interested, you can get on the wait list for the future if I do that again. But it was a really beautiful, chill way. And in the moment I thought of it, I was like, would anybody else want to do this? Is this like a thing? But it turns out it was, and it was really inspiring to learn that you can change up the ways that we get together. The other day, a woman emailed me about an event happening in London that she thought, I had a friend in London. She's like, maybe your friend wants to come, and it was a combination plant swap and dance party. And I like both of these things because even though I'm introverted, I am always down to talk about plants. And a dance party is great because I don't have to talk, but I can interact and communicate non-verbally. There's so much communication that happens just through movement. And so this is something that, like, if you're in London, check it out. And if you want this in your area, create it and invite people to it, because I really believe that when we create the invitations that we wish existed, we can actually transform our lives. And I have a whole TED talk about that. You can look it up. Another really cool way to interact during this time of distance, many years ago, I was a part of this project called 1001 Journals, where there were 1001 journals, like blank sketchbooks, and people from all over the world, many of whom were also designers and artists, would trade these books through the mail. And when you'd get it, you would add a few pages to it, and then mail it to the next person on the list. And it was this combination between like pen pal and art making and book crossing. And many of these journals ended up in a museum exhibit that was based on the documentary 1000 Journals. If you want to look that up, so inspiring, a way to really create this like global network of creative people in a super low key way. Another one I've heard about is Silent Book Club, where you get together and read quietly for 30 minutes and then share afterwards. You can talk about the thing that you're reading and get to know each other through the books that you read. And the last one I would share is a really cool app I've been using lately called Slowly, where it's a cross between snail mail and digital communication, where you can make a friend anywhere in the world, or if you know someone that you want to join together and do this with, and you write letters through the app and you put a stamp on it, and then they intentionally delay the delivery based on how far away you are. You get a little countdown and your little letters flying across from like Brazil to like the Netherlands or whatever. It's like, oh, you have a letter coming. And you have to like wait and wait and wait. And so it builds up this really beautiful anticipation. And because it takes time, there's no pressure ever to like reply immediately. Is gone. It's like purposely removed. And unlike a lot of other social media tools, it creates this environment where kindness and patience and curiosity are the driving values rather than like having a hot take or like being sarcastic or something. So I encourage you to be creative. The lovely thing is, I know I'm in a room of creative people, and I know that you can be imaginative and thoughtful and creative in thinking about like what kind of friendships do you want to experience and what do you want your friendships to feel like, that you can like breathe some new energy into, if it's a existing friendship that's getting kind of redundant or like stale, or if it's like a brand new friendship and you want to try some brand new things. So I love my UX people. You are a beautiful blend of the right brain and the left brain, and I have total faith in you that you can do this. So, to get ready to wind it down, we're also going to do a giveaway at the end here in just a second. But to get ready to close this up, I want to leave you with a question to think about, maybe even to journal about. So, imagine if you were designing friendships for yourself and the friends in your life, what would be the thoughtful, creative, interesting, unexpected, and delightful user flows for friendship? What would they look like? What would they feel like? And how would they come to life? I will tell you that I asked myself this very same question when I was writing We Should Get Together. And I really said, how can we reduce friction? And how can we incorporate research backed strategies to create these joyful and rewarding connections for ongoing friendship in the world of busy adult life where you still got to live the rest of your life too? And I believe that this question is really one of the most important questions that we're going to be asking over the next few decades. So, we are going to do a giveaway here in just a second. I'm going to be giving away some books. And as we wrap up, though, I'd like to invite you to just take a deep breath right now and to thank yourself for being here today, to thank yourself for making time to come to Talk UX, to thank yourself for putting yourself out there, whether it was through speaking in a room or through sharing in the chat, putting yourself out there, letting you be seen, letting your voice be heard. Thank yourself. If you're an introvert, I know that's also a big step, so thank you too. And also think about, what would be the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences of connection in your life for the next 6 months. Think about what it would look like, feel like, in what dimension would it live, whether it's slow and quiet and cozy, or whether the thing you're craving is like a loud, high energy, boisterous experience. Let yourself really see those experiences calling to you, and then make a mental note of 2 steps that you can take to begin to make that a reality sometime soon. Whether for you soon is going to mean by the end of the weekend, or whether soon means in 2 months or 6 months. Think about what steps you can take to begin to bring that into reality. And if your hope is to build a friendship with somebody that you met here at Talk UX or who shared in the chat that they want to connect, I encourage you to follow through on the conversations that have started here and to follow through on the reach out that has been posted in the chat and to keep reaching back. And if you keep reaching back, we really can take these burgeoning baby seeds of friendships and help them grow so that they blossom and give us fruit for many, many years to come. I really, really appreciated sharing this all with you. And who knows, maybe in 15 years, one of you will be telling a story about how you met your best friend here at Talk UX. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a quick giveaway. I have like a few minutes here. And the way that this is going to work, oh, yeah, here's my little info if you want to keep in touch with me. But the way that the giveaway is going to work is that I am going to have folks share in the chat. Hold on a second. Who wants books? We are going to share in the chat right now a big capital yes if you want to be included in the giveaway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to like scroll up and down with my eyes closed and see where my mouse lands. And then we're going to pick some winners. This is the low friction way I figured out that we could do this. Okay, see lots of yeses. Yes, yes, yes. This is fantastic. Okay, so yes, get those yeses in there. Okay, so I am going to close my eyes, scroll, 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 and see where my mouse is on Kavita. Kavita is number one. Say, all right. So we got Kavita. And then I'm going to do that one more time. Let me write these down. I'm going to go one more time. I'm going to like scroll, 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 and open on the mouse, which is at Linda, is going to be winner number two. And then we have scroll, 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 scroll. And I'm going to open my eyes and the mouse. Oh, I scrolled way too far. I'm way down the page. Hold on. I'll do that again. Scroll, scroll, scroll. And I'm at Gabriella Bolbosianu. I hope I said it. I'm sorry if I am messing up names. But I'm going to write that down. And then what I need from the folks who are winners is to get your addresses. So please send me an email at kat@weshouldgettogether.com with your address where you would like me to send your books. I'll include a copy of We Should Get Together and the short addendum Connected from Afar. I'm really excited. I love sending mail, you guys. I just said I love sending in the post. So y'all are going to get some fun packages from me this, well, I'll send them this week. I have no idea how long it will take to get there. But that is what we've got. This was really fun. Love to see the excitement there. And let's see, I want to go ahead and thank you for being here, honestly. Thank you for caring about connection. Thank you for caring about friendship and community. When you do these things, you're also caring for your own health and well being and caring about each other and really helping to create a more enjoyable, belonging filled design community, which quite honestly, from what I can tell, we actually really, really need. So thank you for helping to be the change and to create this space for more people to feel the connection that can not just keep them in the industry longer, but also give them that feeling of fulfillment, connection, and true belonging that we all really deserve in the thing that we chose to make our life purpose. So thanks again to everyone at Talk UX for inviting me to be here. Thank you to our sponsors for making this possible. And if you want to keep up with me, I'm going to paste my social stuff in the chat again if you want to keep up. I don't really check like LinkedIn or Facebook, but I do blabber sometimes on Twitter and Instagram with friendship content. So there's where I am. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for sharing this. I love seeing all the beautiful comments in the chat. And keep reaching out. Don't forget to follow through. You can do
Yeah.
it.
Thanks so much, Kat. Can everybody hear me? Because I usually have issues.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. It was such a nice talk. I really love the connections that are being made in the chat. Thanks to you, we now already have a meetup set up for having coffee or wine here in Utrecht or in the Netherlands. Yeah, just made me tear up a bit. So thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you
Uh,
too.
Thank you also for giving away the book. And Anushka, you have a question? Okay. Are there any questions? Because we still have 7 minutes before we go to the global announcement panel.
Yeah,
There were
we can
so
do
many
some
in chat.
Q&A. I'm going to scroll through and see if there's any Q&A here.
There was one question I had that wasn't answered in the beginning, not at the beginning, but it was about if that you automate the way you make appointments with your friends. And I missed it a bit how you automate it. Do you have a tool for that or?
Oh, right. So we keep it so simple. It's so simple, Kimberly. So um, with one of my friends, we have just a Google Calendar invite, and
Mm,
it's like every Thursday at the same time, and it's set
right.
to just recur every 2 weeks with no end date. And so every 2 weeks,
Ah,
this
okay.
thing
Yeah.
comes up, and we'll usually just like text a little bit ahead of time, be like, hey, does this time still work for you? Sometimes we have to shift it a little bit based on work meetings. But, that way, it's just, like, there, and she doesn't have to be like, "Oh, it's Kat's turn," and I don't have to be like, "Oh, it's her turn."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no one's turn. We just gotta show up. And then the same with another friend I have a weekly call with too. It's like sometimes we shift the time, but because it's just a recurring calendar invite,
Mm,
that way it's just right there.
yeah. We had it actually as well in the mentorship program of Ladies at UX Amsterdam. And I also, of course, then you have regular meetings with your mentor. So, but then the mentorship program ended, and I really missed our calls. So actually, we became friends. Sometimes we didn't even talk about UX or mentoring. We just talked about emotional stuff and our life. So yeah, you just become friends like that. If you have a recurring meeting, you just miss the calls. You miss someone to talk to. It's really nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really, really good point because there's something really special that happens when we're a part of a program together, like this mentoring group you mentioned,
Mm,
where it's useful because you have this shared context, right? You've been on this journey together. You've both, you're learning something together or going
yeah.
through a certain course or whatnot. And that shared context gives you a lot to talk about in that moment. And I just give you kudos for like saying, like, let's keep this going. And we can add in so many other things to this conversation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really happened also in one of my recurring calls with my friends where we set it up primarily during the pandemic to say like, let's have a recurring call where we can like shop talk, like basically
Mm.
like talk about work at like the water cooler because
Yeah.
there's no water cooler.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but out of doing that, we do talk about work and it's really useful, but we also end up talking about our life and our health and like other things too. So it's really important, I think, to get to know each other beyond just like one identity because we are multifaceted people and we have so many other parts that make our life meaningful, relevant, challenging, happy, all the things.
Mhm. Nice. And also thank you for the books you raffled. I want to also take this opportunity to remind the people at the beginning that we also have extra licenses and sketch licenses that will be given away today. So on the Miro board, if you just put that you're interested in winning uh, at your name so many people on the Miro board that put their name on there. So if you're extra interested in winning, let us know because some people maybe already have licenses and it would be too bad. And then at the end, in the closing, we will announce the people that have won. Okay, so I don't have questions popping up, so I think we can take a little break, right, Anush? Just it's now 7. We have 7 minutes, 8 minutes before the global panel, the last panel for the evening, and then the closing. So we're almost done. Yeah, and yeah, we can take a quick pause, I think, to go to the restroom and to take a drink. And maybe I can show the movie again of the chapters. That's nice. We have 7 minutes. It fits perfectly. Did you see the movie, Cat, in the beginning? No, because
No.
you were sleeping. Yeah, no, that's nice. I will show it. Let's see. We have a movie compilation of all the chapters. Not all of them, of course, because there are 85 plus chapters, but 23 chapters send in a video of their community. So I will show it now. Wait, it's starting. I still have to share my screen. Share. And thank you very much. It was great, as I already mentioned. Loved it.
Thank you.
Let's see, where is it? No, not this one. Video. This one.